What's up, y'all? Mark Smith, JBS Training Group. Let's talk about DMR matches and what you might need to have before you go sign up for one of these things. So here recently, I've been doing a lot more DMR matches than I normally do. First question, what in the world is a DMR match? So it's essentially, man, an opportunity for you to take your magnified optic and your gas gun, gas impingement AR-15 style rifle, and go shoot it at rifle targets. I absolutely love this game because it forces you to perform on demand, very much like any other competitive shooting sport. And we're actually shooting rifles at stuff that are rifle targets, right? So these are typically going to be anywhere from 100 yards out to 800 yards. Most of the time, most people stop at 6, but every now and then you'll see one that goes out to 8, maybe even 1,000. And it's just a really, really awesome time to shake out, what you're capable of, what you understand about your gun, the data you've collected, and kind of put yourself to the test. So one of the most common inquiries that comes in is, hey man, like, can I use this gun? Can I use that gun? What do I need? I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to, blah, 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 blah. So right off the bat, man, everybody automatically assumes at a shooting class or at a match that they're going to be the worst guy. That is not true. Well, at least not for everybody. Somebody's right, right? Somebody's got to be last place. But for the most part, that's not true, right? So get that out of your head, man. The goal, I hate to say the goal is not winning, but if the goal is winning, you have to kind of internalize that you can't control that. So even if you want to really, really bad, there's not really a whole lot you can do to choose that. You can absolutely choose to get better and increase your chances statistically and through work and effort of doing that, but you can't control it, right? Come shoot the match, learn what you need to work on, and that just gives you homework to go get better at. So here's what, I kind of thought about this on the drive home from the last one I was at this weekend, and I was thinking, man, like if I could just pick just a very light loadout, what would I want? I want to have this, or I don't really want to go. And here's what I came up with, man. So right off the bat, you need a rifle, right? And this rifle needs to be, man, I'm gonna say if you're holding 3 MOA, you could be competitive. There are people chuckling about that right now that don't believe me. This gun right here, just shot within 97.5% of a 224 Valkyrie precision gun. Took high recce division, and that's a 2 MOA gun, right? As of right now with the ammo I was shooting it. So a 2-minute gun is absolutely doable. 3-minute gun, I would even say, is doable, right? Not ideal. I didn't say ideal, but not everybody's sitting around with a half-minute gas gun, you know what I mean? So what do I need? I need a 3 MOA rifle to be competitive, right? I need to set this rifle up for success, meaning based on what you're gonna be doing, what do you need, what do you not need? So for instance, man, I'm all for bringing your duty gun if you're a copper or something like that, or bringing your gun that you have staged up just to test it out. I'm all for that. But if you're coming to win, I don't know how a laser aiming module is going to help you, right, with this task. I don't know how a giant vertical foregrip on the bottom of the gun is going to help you. I know a lot about how it's going to hurt you, right? And so I have to kind of deduce what do I need and what's going to help me do this. And so I'm just going to walk you through what I would take and why I would take that, and you make informed decisions based on that, man. I think it would be the height of ego and arrogance for me to make this video and say you must take what I take or you're wrong and you ain't gonna make it, because that's not true. It's not true. You can get away with a lot, but if I can mitigate problem areas, why the heck wouldn't I, right? So we'll jump right into it. All right, man, so right off the bat, let's talk about the blaster. Depending on what division you want to get into, depends on how this gun's going to look, right? If you are going into open division, then you're probably going to have some sort of Wildcat cartridge, 224 Valkyrie, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6mm arc, something like that. And you need to discern, what do I have that I can use? So I have multiple times competed with a 12.5-inch 6mm arc gun. I would never go to a shooting match with that gun anticipating to win, because I'm handicapped right out of the gate. I've cut the legs off a 6mm arc and I'm using it in a 12.5-inch platform. I was also using Leupold's 2-to-10 optic. I was doing this because I was testing the gun, not because I wanted to win, and by default, that put me into open, right? So sometimes you're just gonna end up there and there's nothing you can do about it anyway. cool. But for most people, we're talking about the 16-inch and under gas guns, right? The 16-inch and under 5.56 blasters. I think that you need a scope that has a measuring stick in it, right? This is not going to be your BDC reticles. You can take them if you want to, right? But don't say nobody told you, because you're probably going to ride the struggle bus with those things unless you have documented data on where those holds truly are in time and space, because, surprise, the box and the paper that you get that tells you where to hold and what those yard lines means almost never lines up. So if you're a BDC guy, I don't hate you, man. It is what it is, but have reasonable expectations, right? You need to go collect data on this gun before you ever get to the match, meaning how fast is my bullet going? Do I have a ballistic solver I can input data into and input it appropriately without goofing it all up as the human element that's responsible for this, where I can get good solid data out of that machine that I can use to quantify what do I need to do in time and space for this target at this distance, right? Very, very rare to see every target at every DMR match be at a solid 100-yard line, meaning you're very rarely going to shoot 300, 400, 500. You will almost certainly you will shoot 323, 481, and 511, right? And so, like, that's pretty close to a whole yard line mark? Yeah, yes, sir, it is. However, it ain't very close to a whole yard line, right? When you're talking about trying to mitigate errors and trying to be as precise as possible. So have some data on the gun, man. There's plenty of good ways to figure this out. The way I did it for the longest time before I could afford a really good ballistic solver is I would go out and every 50 yards on paper, I would print where this gun is in time and space. What's the drop doing? You can take a target, draw a white spray paint line across it, hold your 300 hold that you think is your 300 hold at 300 yards on that line and fire a shot, and then take another spray paint line and mark it through the center of the optic or through the center of the group you printed. And now you know an offset that you can adjust to and kind of figure out, okay, this ain't so much 300, it's more like 329 or whatever it ends up being. You know, without going into a ton of detail that you guys don't really give a crap about here, and get some data, okay? Get some data. You need a solid 0, okay? Good enough 0 is not good enough for this sport. You must be zeroed. If you're not zeroed, you must understand how to input that offset into your ballistic solver, meaning if you go to check the 0 and the 0 ain't the 0 no more and it's a 1/2 mil high, I need to be able to put that data into my ballistic solver to account for it, or I need to re-zero the gun. There's basically no other option other than Kentucky windage in this mug, and not recommended, right? So next, support equipment, man. At some point you may want to have an offset dot on the gun, whether it be 12 o'clock or offset, doesn't really matter. This can help you identify and index off of targets that you're having trouble finding. This can help you when you have multiple ranges potentially, where they're going to ask you to shoot a 100-yard Iron Maiden and then a 300-yard target, then a 100-yard Iron Maiden, then a 400-yard target. Instead of, you know, dialing or going through the holes or something weird like that, I could just go ding, pow, ding, pow, you know, and work through it like that. It might be beneficial, might not, right? I'm not going to call it a requirement. I'm going to call it a nice to have, okay? From there, moving toward the front of the gun, I think that while it's not a requirement, it's another nice to have, a full-length rail, man. The problem with the shorter rails is you just don't have a lot of options for different barricades to set the gun on the barricade, right? You end up having to do some weird stuff because your rail's only 10 inches long and your barrel's 18 inches long, and you end up like with this weird position where you're like, dang it, if only I had 4 more you know, inches of rail space, I might be able to accomplish something here. I like rails going as far as the barrel goes, if at all possible. Next up, what am I putting on this rail? So you'll notice some kind of weird stuff happening here. On the front of this gun, I have weights. These are lead weights that I've added to the front of the gun, and it just basically is there for a gaming aspect, man. Again, a nice to have, not a requirement. Helps me solidify the mount of the gun to the barricade. Also keeps the gun from moving so much at the muzzle to keep me on target for each shot, that sort of thing. Nice to have, not required. I'm gonna go with another nice to have, but not required. I need a bipod. If I got one, right? I'm not gonna go buy one to go to a match, but if I got one, I'm gonna use it, right? Ideally, this bipod would be able to be quickly disconnected from the gun, right? I don't want to be like obligated to keep this thing on the gun the entire match, because there are absolutely certain moments where having the bipod on the gun is going to fight against you, not help you. We'll explore those, you know, in a different video or something. But I want to be able to quickly get rid of it. I also want to be able to quickly deploy it, right, and understand it. Be able to take this thing and, you know, loosen some things and make it be able to do what I want it to do, and then lock in whatever I want to do with it. So, you know, well, is it required? No. Nice to have, right? Nice to have. Let's jump into the requirement stuff, right? And again, none of this is technically required to go to a match. You can go and you can ride the struggle bus if you want to, right? Like, nobody's telling you you can't. But if you want to go and actually be competitive and get the most out of your setup, the one thing that is going to be like required gear, in my opinion, is going to be a good bag, man. I prefer the Armageddon Gear Game Changer. I prefer, if I could only have one, it would be the Schmedium size. That's not me making up a redneck word, that's an actual name. Schmedium size, and it's going to be the heavy feel, wax coated. And the reason I like the heavy feel, when you drop this thing on a barricade, man, it just conforms to it better. And when you drop a rifle on it, it conforms to it better, and it also doesn't move under recoil like the lighter weight bags do. It's just a more solid mount. This is not something I would carry into the backcountry elk hunting because it's heavy as crap, but for gaming purposes, why the heck not, right? I like that it has this weird shape, so I can drape it over things on either side, right? I can stand it tall, I can turn it sideways, I can do all kind of crazy stuff with it. It's got the straps on it so that you can start the stage like that. They're gonna make you, you know, do something like you must start with a bag in your hand, you know, that kind of thing. It's just wonderful. When you get it, if it were me, I would take about 30, maybe even up to 40% of the fill out of it. Good rule of thumb, I want to be able to set this bag up and it still have some fill in the top of it when it's standing tall, but I don't want it to like all be gone from the top where this is just floppy. But I also don't need it to be like so thick and tight that it can't drape over things easily and it can't conform to guns easily. So that's just the way I choose to live life with that thing. And this, even if you don't know how to use it, and even if you've, like, this is the first time you ever heard of shooting bags, doesn't negate your benefit of having it, right? Get it and play with it and see, play with it. Get it and figure out how to use it, and you'll find, man, like, this thing makes life so much easier, right? So much easier. Another thing that I have found along the way that really, really works out in your benefit is to have different size magazines. So I'm absolutely in the GP, that is general purpose, or the recce divisions, 16-inch gas gun, you know, 5.56 gun with a LPVO of 1 to something, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10. I can use as much ammo as I want in my magazines. I'm not beholden to anything like that, unless, you know, you're at some weird match that decides you can't have but so much ammo, and then you got to do what you got to do. But if you're not, I always want a 30-round mag available, and even in some cases, potentially a D60. Sometimes we give it P for plenty, right? And I need a magazine that can keep up, because the fastest reload is the one that never happens. So that's just the way I like to live life. I like to have options, right? But yet another one that I would like to have available, if desired, is a 20-rounder. Now, my 20-rounders have my base pad on the bottom of them, available at jbstraininggroup.com. And the reason is, it's shorter than a 30-rounder, and it keeps it out of my way sometimes where a 30-rounder is getting in my way. It also gives me 4 additional bullets that I don't have out of a standard 20-rounder. So this holds 24 rounds. I can't tell you how many times that a 20-round mag was the way to go, and I ended up being like, dang it, if only I had 1 or 2 more rounds, right? So this is my solution for that. It is still small. It still has a base on the bottom of it, that, just like a mag pod, that I could use to set the gun flat on something if I was going magazine prone on anything. But it's also short enough to where that little bit of extra, not having that hang down, comes in handy for mounting certain barricades and doing certain things. So have some variety, right? It's very hard to game a stage if you don't have any of the game pieces, right? So like you can't play the game if you've only got like the one thing. So I like to have options to be able to mitigate potential problems, and to also give myself the most advantage that the rule book allows me. So all that being said, man, recapping, you need a good solid gun. That gun should hold somewhere around 2 MOA. However, 3 MOA is acceptable, right? 3 MOA is acceptable. I'm gonna call 2 MOA and under nice to have. 3 MOA is probably gonna be close to a requirement. Bipod, I think that it is a nice to have, but it's up on the higher end of nice to have. I want it if I got it. I use a Harris 6x9, not a 6x9, 6 to 9 inch adjustment value, right? So I can adjust it from 6 inches to 9 inches. I want a quick deployment method on that bipod and a way to get it off the gun if I need to get it off the gun. Excuse me. From there, I need support gear, a bag. This is the single pivoting thing that like helps people shoot better off barricades, man. Very, very underrated. If you don't got a bag, get a bag. I need multiple different heights of magazines and potentially multiple different capacities of magazines based on what I'm doing. And I need to go out and collect data and get a solid 0 on my gun. After you've done all that stuff, all you got to do is sign up for the match, man, and go see what you can come up with. Highly recommend this, guys. This is, you know, you should test yourself. You should test yourself in an unknown environment against human adversaries on a range in a match format. You will learn a ton. Leave your ego in the car, right? Go to the match looking for ways to get better, not looking to win, and it makes it a whole lot more palatable if it doesn't go great, right? If you're paying attention, you can find so many things that you need to work on that you could get better at, but you'll never know those things as long as you keep doing the same thing you always do, right? Because we as human beings naturally do what we're good at and what we succeed at when left to our own option of what are we doing today. But when you go to a match and you're not in control of the environment and you're not in control of what you're asked to do, you kind of sink or swim. And when you sink, you learn, hey man, I should probably do this in this environment. I should probably do this in that environment. And it broadens your experience scope, right? And when you broaden the experience, you by default gain wisdom that you otherwise could never gain. So that's my basic DMR setup, right? What would I take if I had to? Now, if you've got the budget, get a couple of different size bags, man. Make one of them light, one of them heavy, one of them small, one of them big. Get a D60 magazine. Get you a gun that's got a freaking Arca rail all the way down the bottom of it to make it flat. Throw some weights on the thing, a compensator, like game it, right? But I don't think you need all that to be competitive. I've shot matches and done well with regular duty rifles and suppressors on the end of them and flashlights and all this other stuff. And I guess it's not the one thing, but if you want to gain a competitive advantage, these are the things I think you should have to be able to do that. And this is not, this is not the right way. This is just Mark's way. And it's also not the end all be all, right? So if somebody else has got some other opinions, you should listen to those opinions, especially if you have not had the experience, remember, to formulate your own yet. You should, the most primal form of learning is imitation. Find the guys that are doing stuff that you wish you could do and look at what they do and ask them questions. They'll probably give you some pretty good insight. Other than that, man, that's what I got. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Guys, the podcast is out hot and heavy. And speaking of DMR stuff and shooting rifles far away, we got a guest coming on. Today is April the 25th. We got a guest coming on in the next couple of weeks. I think you'll enjoy. I'm not going to announce it just yet, but we're going to be talking about shooting rifles and stuff. So you can get that on any streaming platform, the JBS Training Group podcast. Check out the previous shows where we got Jim Hodge on there, Bill Blowers, and we're going to have quite a few more that I think you'll want to hear about. And, like, subscribe, all that kind of jazz to the YouTube stuff. If you want to be a part of the newsletter, go to jbstraininggroup.com. It'll pop up a little window. Stick your email address in there. I swear I'm not going to send you a bunch of bull crap. The only newsletters I send out are stuff that I'm working on, stuff that I'm thinking about, and stuff that pertains to shooting. It ain't, hey, come and buy my junk every 3 hours, because screw that, right? If you want to check out a class schedule, man, www.jbstraininggroup.com. Appreciate the heck out of y'all, man. See you on the range.